Hello, everyone. If you are joining us for the very first time, welcome to the Defining You podcast. Today, I am very excited to have a very special guest. In fact, she's had several appearances on my former radio and television programs, so we are not strangers to each other. We know each other very well. Hello, Alicia.
Hi,
Welcome.
Helena. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And
Yes,
congrats to you on this amazing podcast. You are doing your thing. Shout
thank
out
you.
to you.
Thank you so much. It is so nice to reconnect with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. There's so much that we can talk about. So let's get right into it. Why don't we start by you briefly telling us who you are and what you do right now?
Oh, yeah, that's such a loaded question. Who I am, I am a child of God, which
Amen.
I can say that is my inheritance, that is my identity. I have to start there. I'm a native of Boston, born and raised. It's so funny. Sometimes people are like, you're not from here? And I'm like, I am from Dorchester and Rosendale. I am a wife. I've been married now for almost 11 years.
Woohoo.
I am a mother of three, two boys and a girl,
Nice.
and I am a servant leader. I see myself as a servant in my community where I work, in my church community, and in the world. That's
Mhm,
how I identify.
mhm. When you say a servant leader, can you just briefly break it down for people who may not understand what that means?
Yeah, we talk a lot in our society about being a leader. You're a leader, you're a leader. And follower is meant to feel like it's diminishing. So if you're not a leader and you don't want to identify as a follower, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And I think being a servant is
Mm,
so honorable.
wow.
Serving means that I am at the pleasure of this organization, this person I'm serving, whatever the cause is, I am in service to that. And for me, being a servant is humbling,
Mm,
it is gratifying, and it helps me to grow.
wonderful. So before you became this incredible servant leader, what was like for you growing up?
My family migrated from Alabama, Atlanta, so the South, during the Great Migration to Boston. And I grew up with a very Southern African American culture, lots of women, very matriarchal family. Maybe I had like two or three boy cousins, but everyone around me, I was surrounded by
Mm-hmm.
women, strong Black women. I think that my childhood was filled with family, faith, and
Mm,
friends.
yes.
I grew up, I was that kid in the 80s that we played in the middle of the street. The fire hydrant was open on
Mm,
hot days. That was our swimming pool. We rode our
those were the
bikes.
days.
Those were the days. Cookouts where like your whole family would come. That was my childhood.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you had very strong women around you. And I mean, it's no secret that women rule the world. So if you could, if you could name one person who had the biggest influence in your life and helped shape the woman you are today, who would that be?
Well, I can't name one because I'll get in trouble. They're a dynamic duo. That is my
Okay.
grandmother and my mother
Mm,
together.
we can't
And
leave
that
Nana
is
out.
because, yeah, no. She has actually gone to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that we grew up in a multi-family home in Dorchester, and that was all family. So my grandmother either lived upstairs or downstairs from me.
Mm,
And so between my grandmother and my mother, the two of them really tag teamed me. So
mm,
my faith and my just strong conviction in Jesus and being a servant really came from my grandmother. My like professionalism and like
mm,
my decisiveness and my ability to lead and be a caregiver, because I'm one of those wives and mothers who I might have like a high powered job, but I come home, I cook dinner, almost every night. I am a family person. I am doing two jobs at once. And so I got that from my mom. And so the two of them together really helped shape what I knew as an identity of the type of woman that I would turn out to be later in life.
Mm-hmm. And what is that woman you think you turned out to be?
You're trying to go somewhere with this. I mean, I one of the things I will say is that of all those things that I named that are great, they also have another side to them.
Mm-hmm.
And in this pandemic, one of the things I learned from myself and with other women, that sometimes we do put too much pressure on ourselves, and that can not only affect our mental health, but it can affect our purpose. Our purpose is not to be burnt out and overwhelmed. And this superwoman syndrome, I crushed it in this pandemic. Like I said to the superwoman syndrome, no, you're a lie. I'm not a superwoman, but I have supernatural power in me. I can do all things through Christ. Without Christ, I can't. And I think that the society sometimes, Helena, has taught us that, especially when you're growing up with a family like I did, that you do things in your own strength, right? If you just kind of had a few more hours of sleep, or if you just stayed up all night. But that is not how God designed for us.
That is so true.
To do it all, quote
Wow.
unquote.
So your book, can you just tell us briefly, what is your book about? And I know you said you're doing a re-release. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So Walking in Your Truth. I wrote this book 5 years ago and released it basically at the end of 2016, so 2017, because I as a kid would journal. And journaling was my first introduction to a tool that helped build my emotional intelligence, my emotional capacity, my ability to self-reflect and be self-aware and to heal. And I find that in this work that I've been doing, we've known each other for a long time, especially working with women, is that they want to journal, but they don't know where to start. They don't know what to say.
Right.
And so God gave me this really creative idea to create a journal, but ask women the hard and the right questions about their truth. And it's called Walking in Your Truth. Really quick, one of my favorite Bible stories is the woman at the well. And that is a story of telling the truth to God, knowing that he already knows the truth, but he wants to know that you're ready to deal with your truth. And one of the things he said to the woman at the well was, "Where's your husband?" She said, "I have no husband." And at that moment was the moment that Jesus was able to penetrate her heart and minister her into such a way that it changed her life. And this book is designed to get to the heart of your truth, even if it's ugly, even if it's painful, even if it's hurtful, shameful, all those things, God can handle all of it.
Let's stay on the book for a minute here. You began your book by saying journaling is a powerful tool to help to self-discovery, healing, and empowerment. What have you learned about yourself through the process of documenting your life's journey?
I've learned that healing is hard, but it's necessary. Healing is a journey. It is not a destination in terms of process. I've also learned that you can be made whole. For believers of Christ, they understand that context, but I also have been called to non-believers. And what I want non-believers to understand is that you can be a whole person. You don't have to be broken.
Right.
And I know this because of my hope in Christ. But even if I don't get to tell you that, I want you to see that in my life. And so sometimes I will share personal stories of my trauma, my brokenness, and then how I was healed. And one of the things that, since I wrote this book, I had to address childhood trauma. Sometimes we don't want to even go back. But how can you move forward in life if you don't go back? and figure out, did something go wrong back here? Is that why I'm not being able to move forward in the way that I am? And some of us, we think we're moving forward, but it's at a snail's pace because we're dragging too much with us, too much burdens, too many hurt feelings, too much self-guilt, hate.
Mm.
And
Yes.
so that's the journal is really meant to help you release, unpack. And I talk about forgiveness, which a lot of people, they approach me about it who have my book and they're like, girl, why you go there? And I was like, why not?
Why not?
You can't forgive someone. Some things are unforgivable. That's not true. Everything's forgivable.
Yes.
Including things with yourself.
Forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness is really for you. That's incredible stuff, Alicia. And I think your book has impacted so many people. And the purpose of doing this show is really to help women see women like you being so candid about your experience and your life story. So I'm going to take you there a little bit. And if you feel comfortable in going there, please feel free to go as far as you can. But you also said in journaling saved you from self-destruction. How so?
Yeah. Well, there's many things, but I will say that my first journal exercise is about telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I ask people to write like 3 truths and 3 lies. And so a part of that is like, we don't want to admit that we lie.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the lies that I used to tell myself was that I loved myself. That was not true.
Wow.
That was not true, because to love yourself is to have this full acceptance of self. So there were times in my life from when I was a child to being a young adult, and I'm a grown woman, that I had like partial self-love. I had moments of self-love, but there was always like this little secret door of things that I was like, oh, I don't love myself because of that. And because of that, what is born from that is not feeling worthy, not knowing what you deserve, and not knowing how to treat people, how to teach people how to treat you. Because if you don't know what you're worth,
how to treat
how
people,
do
how
you
to
give
treat
out
you.
the price?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that was one of the lies that I told myself, because, you know, you got to show up. And so I didn't want to have self-doubt or low self-esteem. I didn't want to admit that validation from other people was really the fuel to my self-love versus, oh no, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made.
We say that a lot.
And believing that in my own soul, and then letting that grow into what my self-love looks like. That took me a long time to unpack that.
So what would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned from journaling?
That it's okay to have feelings. It's okay to say things out loud that you don't want anybody else to hear or know, that your feelings matter. Your experiences matter. Your trauma happened and it doesn't define you. It doesn't make you stuck. And that just like an airplane, Helena, has capacity, you have capacity. And some of us are over capacity, which is why we keep crashing. Planes crash sometimes because they're over capacity. Or when you bring your baggage and they say, oh, it's over the weight limit, we get upset. We're like, oh, I got to open my bag. I got to take stuff out. What am I going to do? You've got to pack light. You've got to throw some stuff away. At that point, you don't have a choice. And what I learned from journaling is that journaling forces you in a healthy way to unpack, to let go and put things on paper. And then once it's down, then you realize, oh my gosh,
Mm.
this is where I'm at. Before this pandemic, everybody's going to all these events. We're going to meetings. We got all these titles. We got all these responsibilities. And all of that was just a distraction so that you wouldn't check your capacity.
Check in with yourself. And I think especially for Black women, we're just constantly going and thinking we have to be there and be all for everybody and forget that we exist. So for women who are going through exactly that same thing, I mean, you talk about three structures of journaling, but journaling requires discipline and consistency, Alicia. And there are so many things that can be uncovered. For example, you talk about the lies in your book, the self-check, the family unties, the forgiveness, time to cry, love, hurt, and beliefs. None of those things are easy to tackle. What do you say to people who may find this process too difficult to go through?
I'm so glad that you brought that up, which is why I designed the book. So part one, it's broken into three parts. Part one is meant for you to just pick it up, put it down. Mm-hmm. I've had people that said, I read your first exercise and I put that book down for like 6 months. Oof. So for the part one is just to start, is really an opening. It's a scaffolding approach to let's just learn this muscle. Part two is a 7-day consecutive commitment. Once you get to part two, it's because you've mastered part one. And then level 3 of the book is open journaling. And so in some of my like workshops and retreats, I tell women, I have women who are creatives and I'm like, you don't have words, draw a picture. You don't know what to say, write a word. Try to draw what you're feeling. It's not about these long posts. It's just about saying something, because how is it that we make time to say so much to other people and not to ourselves? How is it that we listen and do and serve so many people, but we don't serve ourselves? And really journaling is that tool to hold you accountable to serving Helena.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
So it's not as much discipline as people think. And this is why I tell people, because the trick of the enemy, right, is to make you think, I don't have time. I mean, we talk about this with prayer. I don't have time to pray. Yes, you do. You don't have an hour to pray. Even if you have 5 minutes, you got 5 minutes to journal. Right? You could audio journal. You could write. Again, it's all about building your muscle, and you build muscle by doing something on a regular basis.
There is also an element of fear that may come into people not wanting to go back into their past. Some people do not know how to handle that. What is your advice to those people who are still holding back?
Helena, fear is a strong power, but it's not the most powerful thing, because freedom is more powerful than fear.
Yeah, fear is a spirit too.
And I tell people this. Early on, when I recognized fear was keeping me back from some things, I literally was like, and I may have wrote this in my book, I'm dragging fear. Oh, fear, you want to try to come with me where I'm going? Go ahead. But you're going to be at my feet. And then I'm going to stomp on you because you're not going to hold me back. And I think that what I tell people is that you might be afraid of it and you don't want to go back, but your trauma and your pain is present. I see it. I see it in people, how they show up in the workplace, how they interact in romantic relationships, friendships, how they are in the community. We think that we're hiding it because we're not dealing with it, but that is not true. It shows up in every aspect of your life. And so my plea to people is that freedom is free, but it will cost you the dominating piece of fear. Freedom, dominate. Fear tries to dominate you, but freedom is free, and it will allow you to be this person that you really are portraying that you are, but you're not. There's authenticity with it.
Yes, you talk about freedom. You were able to go through your own journey and your struggles and find ways to help yourself to get to this place. Some people may not be able to do it on their own. They may require talking to someone, talking to a therapist. I know that's also something that we in the Black community, therapy is something that is not something that we really embrace, but it's helpful to get you from one point to the next, or find someone that you can talk to. In your talks as a speaker, as an author, what are you finding from these women that you are empowering?
I think you're right. People are afraid of healing because they know it hurts,
Mm-hmm.
and opening yourself back up without like almost like this assurance that it's going to work out. You got to have faith.
Mm-hmm.
And therapy, I love my therapist.
Right.
We have a good time. I look forward to my therapy
Mm-hmm.
sessions. And I started doing therapy my senior year of college because I was introduced to therapy through another Black sister.
Mm.
And at first, I'm like, I will admit, I was like, I'm not crazy. I don't need to go to therapy. She said, what are you talking about? You don't have to be
That
crazy to go to therapy.
that's the misconception that we have as a
That's
Black
the
community.
misconception.
Yes, but
But
for
therapy is like exercise for your mind.
mm,
We go to the gym, we got a membership at all these gyms. We're so quick to do all these different workouts for our physical, but we don't want to work out our mental. We don't want to kind of unpack the things and get our mind, which is connected to our heart. And the things that are in our heart come out of us. And so if we don't understand that as these kind of mind, body, spirit people, that you got to take care of all three, this is why we're losing to being who God created us to be. And that is why I do this work and I'm so transparent,
mm-hmm.
because I want people to know that it's not as bad as you think. You're gonna cry.
Mm.
Just you're gonna cry.
But in order to
But
come
crying is
through,
healing.
that is required.
Yeah. It's required to cry. Just get a box of tissues. I'll even, you know what? Helena, I want to say to your audience, anyone who decides because of this particular conversation to sign up for therapy, I will do two things. One, I will pay for your first therapy session,
Mm.
and I will give you a copy of my book and a box of Kleenex.
Oh, wow.
Please let me know if someone signs up. I
Okay.
will do that because I believe in you and I believe in therapy.
Well, thank you so much, Alicia. I think that's encouraging. So for those who you just made an offer, for those who would like to connect with you and take you up on that offer, how can they reach you?
They can email me. Definitely email me, Alicia C. Adamson at gmail.com. You can go on my website, aliciaadamson.org. If you forget that email address, you can just click the contact button and I'm happy to connect with you. Or you
Mm-hmm.
can connect with Helena and she'll make sure we get connected. But it's the first person who says they're signing up for therapy,
Mm-hmm.
I will pay for your first session.
Absolutely. And therapy is your first step to unpack those things that are holding you back to what you're meant to be. And sometimes, maybe some people may not be ready to start therapy, but talk to someone that you trust. Talk to someone
Mm-hmm.
that is going to help you to see things that you're unable to see, because there are so many Black women in our community who are gifted, and because of the trauma that they've gone through, a lot of them do not even know the gifts that they have been blessed with. I feel like we were all brought here for a purpose. And if you don't know that purpose, you're going to die with that purpose inside of you. And what purpose would that have served if you didn't really explore who you are and who you were meant to become? And so we have people who are afraid to come out, or to do what they were meant to do. Alicia, what would you say to people who are still struggling because of their past and things that they've gone through?
You need help. We're not meant to do this thing called life alone. You do need help, and you're not alone. There's no shame in asking for help. and being on a journey of healing. And it's not going to happen overnight. I want to manage your expectations. But every time you decide to forgive yourself, to forgive someone, every time you decide to talk about that sexual abuse, that physical abuse, every time you decide to talk about the rejection, the abandonment issues you have, you get just a little bit more free. And I believe that both therapy is a practical tool that God has allowed for us to have access to. But I also believe in the power of Jesus. And in this time, I'm not here to convert you. That's not what this session is about, right. But I am a witness to say that whom the Son sets free is free indeed. And if he can free me, he can free you. And that's the piece that people need to have hope about, Helena, is that it has happened to other people that they have been made whole, and it can happen to you.
You know, the funny thing about it, these things can be carried on from generation to generation. So for women who are listening, who have kids, what would you say to them? Because there are so many things that we're doing. We have to go out and we have to work. We have to take care of the kids, take care of the bills, take care of the homes, take care of extended families. And on top of that, women who have kids. What is your message to the women who are listening right now?
Mother to mother, it only looks like you're not hurting. And your children can feel it. I just had this conversation with mothers. Your kids can feel and sense your emotions. Sometimes when you're lashing out, it's not them, it's you. You're being triggered by your childhood trauma. You're being triggered by pain. You're frustrated because you're like, oh, I'm doing all of this because nobody did it for you. And so what you got to understand is that as long as you stay broken, you have a higher probability of raising broken children. And if you want to end that cycle, because it's a cycle, you have to commit to praying with your kids, to journaling right before you close your eyes, to listening to podcasts like this, to sermons, to building up yourself so that you can be the best mom. You can also be the best spouse. Don't even get me started on romantic relationships, because when we hold trauma, sometimes we're behaving as if we are our parents, but you're not them.
That is so
that
true.
Man is not your father. You are not your mother. And once you realize that, your relationship will get better.
Wow. That's some nugget in there. So what is one thing you wish parents did and you are not seeing enough of it now?
Having no technology, right? So no TV, no phones at the table, dinner at least 2 to 3 times a week, where everyone is sharing. And we do that in our family. Sometimes it's like 2 days, depending on what's happening. But I think it's important for kids to share and have an outlet. I think it's important for parents to share and have an outlet. And sometimes we use those family dinners for family meetings. Yes. And in meetings, it's also restorative justice. Like we talk about, one of the kids got in trouble, right? We'll be like, okay, let's use this as a conversation. And how do we ask for forgiveness? Sometimes parents, we say sorry to our kids all the time. Like, you know what? I'm sorry that I snapped at you. I had a rough day and that was not on you. That is something I think, especially because, I work with young people. They are so shut down because they don't have those intimate relationships at home. Even though their parents are their caregivers, they don't have this safety, this intimacy to share.
Wow, Alicia, thank you so much for sharing that. What is the would you want to leave on the hearts of those who are listening right now?
I would say that if this pandemic has showed us anything, is that people, this world is depending on all of us. In the words of Dr. Anita Phillips, who's amazing, to be well. Your family is depending on you to be well. Helena, your listeners are depending on you to be well. Pastors, your churches are depending on you to be well. CEOs, entrepreneurs, your customers, your staff are depending on you to be well. Parents, your children need you to be well. And wellness is not just about self-care Saturday or self-care Sunday, or let me go to brunch and let me do this yoga thing. No, it is a lifestyle of healing, forgiveness, love, work. You got to work some of your stuff out and stop pretending that if you don't deal with it, that it'll just go away, because that's not true. So my plea to you is to commit to being well, mind, body, and soul.
Absolutely. That's a powerful word to leave the audience with. And for those who would like to get a hand on your book and to get into the journaling that you advised earlier, where can they find that book?
The book is on Amazon. If you type in my name, Alicia Adamson, or Walking in Your Truth. You can also go to my website and there's a link. I will say that this fall, I will be re-releasing the gold edition of this book. And there will be a new section that's going to challenge you even more. And that section is all about healing.
You know, it's interesting that you're mentioning the pandemic and going to actually make space for that. There's so much that women, Black and brown women, are experiencing even today. And I feel like, you know, we need to find those resources to help us to navigate and work our way through and find ways to help us to get out of those difficult situations, because you know it, Alicia, you're an executive. I mean, you've done so many different things. You've built organizations to help empower women, but you know, there are so many of us that are not exposed or have access to resources and to do some of those things. So I'm really glad like people like you are coming out and really using your God-given gift to really use that to serve others and to help them to see that they too have a purpose in life, and if they take care of the things that they need to take care of, they too can also even be empowered to empower others. So I want to just say thank you so much for that and continue to do the great work that you're doing. But before you go, I want to ask you the question that I ask everyone. What is it that people would be surprised to know about you?
Oh, I am probably my toughest critic. There's no self-condemnation. I went through that. That's in the next book. In my younger years, like the stuff that I tell people to do as tools, I am hard on myself about those things. And I check myself. I sit myself down. I give myself times out. I'm like, girl, get it together. I know how to be my first evaluator. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes I'm too hard on myself. And I'm blessed to have sisters in my life that will say, girl, are you kidding me? You are a great mom. You are a great wife. You're awesome. And you need that sometimes. So I will say that I'm very blessed that I have people around me to counter that. Because if you're just always critical of yourself, that can turn a different way.
Absolutely. We all know about that. And, you know, I'm glad you say that, because even women who are strong and they can empower others, sometimes I've even had people say to me when I'm having a moment, oh no, you don't go for stuff. You're always amping me up. You're always, you know, you always have that positive vibe. But the thing that people forget, I may have moments where I do that and it comes to me naturally, but the fact that people forget sometimes is that we are all human beings, and we all have those moments when we need others to check in on us and to just make sure that we are doing okay as well. So I'm so glad that you were transparent about that, because sometimes people forget that you too have your own experiences and things that you have to also do to build yourself up. So it's a
And
continuous process.
can I just say on that point, like you have to be careful in this work that you and I do
Mm-hmm.
to not allow people to put you on a pedestal. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they don't mean to do it. They don't mean to almost like make you like this superhuman,
Mm-hmm.
but it happens very like instantaneously. And then you take
Yes.
that on. And then what happens is you don't share when you're hurting.
Mm.
You don't feel comfortable breaking down in front of people because they're so used to you
Oh my
being
goodness.
the builder.
Yes.
It's
Mm-hmm.
a hard balance because I have to remind people I need encouragement too. I need inspiration. Give me a
Mm-hmm.
word today.
Right. So I think we both understand how that works, and I know it's important for us to see even the people that empower us as human beings, and things can go wrong, and things can affect you in ways that you might never imagine. But even those who empower also go through their moment. But is the key is finding ways to help yourself get through those moments so you can get back into a space where you can feel free and be strengthened all over again.
Let's do this in action, Helena, because I know you got to wrap up because you're a professional. But let me tell you something, Miss Helena. You have been faithful over the platform that God has given you.
Mm.
Continue to be faithful. Continue to use every platform that God gives you. Your light is shining and it is even brighter than you allow people to see. But today, my prayer is that you come forth like a supernova because that's who you are. You are a star and you are the most humble person that I know because you're so gifted. You hold back things sometimes because you don't want people to be like, oh, she thinks she's all that. You are all that in a bag of ketchup chips.
Oh gosh.
Okay. And you are meant to be on a global platform. I believe that God is going to raise you up in this season.
Mm-hmm.
You continue to be faithful. You stay on track. You continue to believe what God said about you in your life. And you keep just inching forward. Everything that you do, we are not going to be surprised when this show is syndicated. We're not going to be surprised when you get invitations to come to different countries, to launch these podcasts, to speak with great leaders around the world. And God's even going to use you to go back to the island where you come from to bring encouragement and inspiration to those people. So I just want you to know it's not over till God says it's over.
You know what? You convicted me here. That's everything you said. It's the whole truth. And I just want to thank you for saying that. Just like I said earlier, sometimes people think like you don't need to have those reassuring words and those comforting words. But Alicia, you almost made me cry. What are you doing?
You know, you set that whole thing up. I just picked up the ball and shot it, but it is true.
Wow. Yeah,
You need to hear that and your listeners need to hear that
you
about
you
you.
you got me with that one.
Thank you for letting me say that.
No, absolutely. It's, this whole podcast thing came about as a result of me getting back into that space. I did radio programs, I did television programs, and then for some reason, things got in the way. But when you're not doing what you're called to do, there is something that will continuously tug at you. And so I came back with a lot of fear of, maybe this may not work, this may not be successful because it's a completely new platform. And so I try to get into it by working with people who could help me to get it started and really wanting to share my own story with people, my own story of fear. I'm still, like you said, I am still timid about this whole thing that I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, but sometimes I don't want to push myself too much because I want to take my time. But I believe when God calls you, you have to answer that call. And I think that's what I'm trying to do. We are all gifted in so many ways. Some people may be gifted in multiple things and holding back because of fear. And I'm saying that's why I bring women like you on this podcast so that we can share our stories of triumph and the challenges and the lessons that we have learned. So those who are holding back and see, it's not all roses. There are things that we will have to go through. The most successful people in the world did not become successful without failure. They failed many times, but they continue to move forward because once you fail, you're getting closer to where you should be. And so I just want women, especially Black and brown women, to know that you're wonderful and the gift that you have, it's not for you. So just, reach out to people, reach out to Alicia, reach out to people you think that may help you to get over whatever it is that is holding you back and do what it is that you were born to do because you are amazing. Just start where you are.
You are preaching to yourself. And I hope that one of your episodes, you are the special guest, that you interview you because you have a lot to share. You don't need a special guest every time. You have us. We are your village. We support you.
Oh
when
my
Helena
God.
calls, we show up.
On
but
my
I'm gonna
street
tell you
today.
Something. You have a show. You have a platform. There are things that you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be praying. And I hope that everybody will join me in praying for Helena, that she goes forth and that discouragement does not hold you back. Not just fear, but discouragement. Because being in media is hard. You've been at this for a long time. But guess what? You're not laboring in vain. Don't make me cry.
I know God is with me. I can tell you when I started doing the podcast, the thing that was missing, it just opened up this joy that I cannot explain. It takes a lot of work. There's so much that goes into this. But to be honest with you, Alicia, if I could do this and just do this alone, I would be enough because I feel like when I do this, I get so much out of wanting to help and to put the message out there and to let people know that there are things that you have inside of you that has not been tapped. And so what can you do? That's why I bring on incredible women so that they can help you to see yourselves in them. And so I want to thank you so much for this really empowering word that you've given to me today. And I don't think it's by accident. I think this podcast episode was meant to be. And so I hope the message that we are trying to spread, that it was received by all those who are listening to the podcast today. So Alicia, thank you so much. You are so special to me.
You are special to me, this world.
You are one of the people that I've interviewed the most. And there's a reason why we continuing to meet like this. And so I also believe there's more that the two of us need to do together. So let's see what God has planned for both of us going forward. And again, I want to thank you so much. I'm looking forward for the re-release of your book and hopefully having you come back on and doing another segment with you. So thanks again. Your word was for my audience, but I also think a major part of this episode was just for me. So again, blessings and thank you so much. It was a pleasure.